Good morning and welcome to another early Sunday morning show with, well, that's it because no one else is getting up. And today I think for those of you that tune in just to see Cat, he's sleeping up in the bed. He kept my feet warm all night, so God bless the kitty cat, but I think he's sleeping, so I can do this without interruption today. Okay, so what we have playing today, everyone knows, but it's a special tribute. We have this. This is the Essential Birds. I have most of the Birds on CD, but as I watch all these videos, oh, holy crap, there's a lot more birds than I ever thought there was. This is for Peter. I talked about him last week. He was a subscriber that went in for an operation a month ago. And he goes, if you don't hear from me, I probably didn't make it. And he goes, he likes 60s and 70s 3-minute pop songs, but he requested that I play the Birds for him. So this is a dedication to Peter, and it was Tutan Vanman. Tutan Vanman, I believe he's out of England. So regretfully, I did not hear from Peter. So we have the Birds on, and obviously someone heard me turn on the music, can tell the camera's on, and here we go again. And here, God, why? All right, so let's get going. Let's start with Felicidades. Felicidades Leos, mi amigos en Puerto Rico. Today is Three Kings Day in Puerto Rico. Three Kings is like the second Christmas in Puerto Rico. It's when the three kings visited, the wise men visited the baby Jesus and presented their gifts. So they celebrate Christmas not once, but twice. Let me tell you, I worked there, and it's crazy. So Christmas is super crazy. Then they take a break. Then they take a week break, and then they start shopping again. And one year I was out with, I took one of my district managers, and he was taking me to his stores, and we were looking at them. And I said, "Hey, I take you to breakfast." So I go in and I order my breakfast, and he just starts laughing and laughing. I go, "What is so funny?" He goes, "You know what you just ordered?" Now I've been ordering this for a couple of years. I go, "Eggs and bacon." He goes, "No, you're ordering eggs and bacon grease." Well, that really explains a lot of the faces I got when I would order, and people go, "What? What?" And then if they spoke English, eggs and bacon. That's correct. Hey. Knock it off. You don't need to nip at me. All right, let us begin with this week. It's, I always say there's an eclectic group of records. Boy, it's this week. It's all over the place. Look at this. No, why? It's like, I don't know. He must like the way I shave. So beats me. All right, eclectic group of records this week. Let's begin with one I've been looking for a very long time and finally found. Dr. John Griskus, see? Dr. John. Dr. John and Griskus. Man, I've searched around for this sucker, and this is on Echo. So Dr. John, the guy was born in 41 in New Orleans. And, what is... his father owned an appliance store and a record store down there. And so in the 50s, he got to, people would come into the record store to, buy records, but also musicians would come in. So he began to meet some of them. And when he was in his teens, he met Professor Longhair. And he was blown away by Professor Longhair. So here comes this guy, and he's really flamboyant and everything, in the costume or the clothing he's wearing. And it made this big impact on him. So, that was always in his mind. Well, right around 60 or so, he had, there was a gun accident. And it kind of messed up one of his fingers. See, he had taken up playing guitar, so he couldn't play guitar. And he tried bass, that didn't work out. And so he went back to the piano, which was a love of his anyway. And he was a really big session man down there. But he wanted his own group, so he came up with this idea, you know what, I'm going to I'm going to create my own persona. I'm going to create this Dr. John. And he based it upon, there was a guy who was from, he was Sinhalese. And he was a spiritual medicinal healer. Or we call them voodoo people. And so he based all this on him. He based his whole character, the dressing, that off Professor Longhair. And so this guy, this guy from Seagal, the spiritual healer, one thing he sold was Gris amulets. And Gris amulets were to protect you from harm. Thus, we come up with the Night Tripper, Gris. And, you know, that's where this is all from. This was his first album in 1968. And this thing took off because it's, you know, it's New Orleans, but psychedelic. But what was really different, it had this voodoo, there's voodoo rhythms in there and voodoo chants in there. So it was something totally different. Everyone's going, whoa, what is this? And suddenly they were checking their drug stashes to making sure they just weren't tripping in a bad way. So Dr. John, Gris. All right, so, you know, he was introduced, you know, by Professor Longhair, got him going. Well, look at that. There's a Professor Longhair album that I found. And this is called Crawfish Fiesta. This was in 1979. This was the last album that he made. He died in January of 1980 of a heart attack. He died peacefully in his sleep, though. So Professor Longhair started in, he was born in 1918. So, man, talk about a long time ago. And his real name was Henry Roland Ray Bird. Actually, Dr. John, his real name was, oh, what was it? It was Malcolm John Redendak. You know, I can't say the name, right? But they don't matter. All right, so Henry Roland Ray Bird. And so he was born in 1918, way back when. He didn't really, you know, in the 40s he began to play piano, and that's where one of the people promoting him called him Professor Longhair, and that's where he got his stage name. Well, in the 50s he took off, and he had one big hit, and the hit was called, it's on this one too, Bald Head. And the thing is, he was playing a different style. It was like kind of a rumba rhythmed piano style. And the white audience didn't get it and didn't buy into it, so he was really big with the African Americans. But you know, the white audience, it didn't work out. So by the 60s, suddenly no one cared about him anymore, and he became a janitor. He still played some night gigs, but he had to support himself being a janitor. Then come the 70s. We have the blues is exploding again. You know, people in England and Europe, they're in the blues, but they also became interested in Professor Longhair and some of the other New Orleans people. And so suddenly he was in demand and began to play again and began to make money. Even Paul McCartney had him come on. When the Queen Mary was retired, Paul McCartney had Professor Longhair come on to play. So suddenly he was taken off, but now he had a white audience that was interested in him. So this was the last album that he made. Really enjoyable listen. Like, you know, Dr. John, you're kind of going, well, that's kind of different. I enjoyed Dr. John, and it's an important album. This one too, just, you know, really great piano. His voice is a little bit different. All right, so there we have that New Orleans. Now let's get into something a little dark. Record Store Day, yes, still showing Record Store Day. Been listening to it. I've listened to it all now, and now I just have to get around to showing it to you. So this is Bauhaus, and so they took their name. In the 1920s, there was the Bauhaus art movement. It came out of Germany. A really kind of a dark art movement. And most of the art was being made at Bauhaus 1919 was the name of the school where they were coming up with this. So Bauhaus's original name, it was Bauhaus 1919. I guess they found that 1919 just wasn't catchy enough. So Daniel Ash, who later went on to Love and Rockets, was one of the founders, and there was a few of them, but it's a lot of names that I would have to remember, so forget it. But he had a friend. He wasn't writing any music, didn't write music, never done anything really with it, but could sing. His name was Peter Murphy. So he convinced him to join. Within 6 months, this band made a 5-track demo. 6 months. 5-track demo, and John Peel heard it and really liked it. Well, that demo got produced, and on it was Bela Lugosi's Dead. And that song, just for 2 years it was on the chart. You know, it's one of the first goth songs, I guess you could say, that ever came out there. I mean, 2 years, so talk about something really going. Obviously Susie and the Banshees was digging it. So and I didn't hear Biles for many years, and then I had this compilation, and it was Bela Lugosi's Dead, and that bass on there, and those strange guitar riffs. And for those that haven't heard it, man, put it on YouTube and play it. I think everyone's pretty much heard it, but if you haven't, it's worth listening to. It's really cool. It's a very long song. So I was happy to pick this up on Record Store Day. Bauhaus. All right, then, back in the 80s, this was a recent pickup, a limited edition Germs. And so this is a live recording, recorded at the Whiskey A Go-Go in June 1977. You know, as Neil Young said, it's better to burn out than fade away. The Germs was a classic. Darby there, he definitely followed that. You know, they had that one album that I showed a few weeks back, and that was it. And you know, he died of drugs, and so he burned out and did not fade away. So this is just a live recording that they had. Fun. It's, you know, fast paced, it's furious, it's the Germs. Mohawk label. Just a nice pickup. Alright, here we go next. Steely Dan, The Royal Scam. Steely Dan, The Royal Scam. I kind of like that. It has a nice sound to it. This is Steely Dan's 5th album. And, you know, when this came out, actually the critics didn't much care for it. And it still went to number 15 in the charts. This was the first album done without their guitarist, Skunk Baxter. You know, he went into the Doobie Brothers and stuff. But what was fascinating is there's a lot of guitar work in here. So their guitarist quits, and Becker takes in a lot of the guitar work, and so there's a lot more guitar in here. But they had hits. You know, Kid Charlemagne's on here, and a fun album, and it's on ABC. So the artwork here, Steely Dan said, this is the ugliest in all of the albums from the 1970s. This has the ugliest artwork of all of them. And this artwork was meant for Van Morrison. And so Van Morrison was making a song called Mechanical Bliss. Mechanical Bliss was the name, but he never got around to producing it. So Steely Dan got this artwork, and it was done by a guy named Zox, Z-O-X, Zox, and there was also a photographer that was part of it. So they took it, and the name of the art piece is called The American Dream. So this guy, he's dreaming, right? He even has holes in his shoes. And it's kind of like here these skyscrapers are turning into monsters and the sky darkens. And Steely Dan hated the artwork. That's just the ugliest thing. But, you know, it still did well. This was the one Steely Dan album that I did not own from the 70s. So there it was. And I forgot I didn't own it, and I just saw it in a store going, you know what? I don't think I own that one. I got it. Super happy. All right. Blues Roots from Dave Brubeck. This came out in 1968, and with this he had on Jerry Mulligan. So I've talked a lot about Dave Brubeck. We know him from, of course, Take 5, and Dave Brubeck put out 1 billion albums. I mean, they just kept knocking them out. But Jerry Mulligan, kind of an interesting guy. He was born in 1927, and he passed away in 1986. And he was from a very affluent house. They had lots of money. And he was the youngest of the children. Well, he had a nanny. The nanny's name was Lily Rose. And Lily Rose liked Jerry, liked him a lot. So she would take him home. And she had this player piano and had all these different rolls. And he would listen to that and play the music and love it. Some of it was Fats Waller. Now, in the 20s, Fats Waller was just considered, ooh, that's awful risque stuff, you know, to be playing. But he would enjoy it. And since it was in the 30s, you know, black musicians weren't allowed to stay in hotels quite often. This was even up north. So they would stay in other of the African American homes. which is what they did. So Lily Rose would host different musicians, so Jerry Mulligan would get to meet them. Well, that helped to get him interested in music, you know, piano, but actually became a sax player on there. So that's how he really got interested in stuff. You know, in the 40s, he began playing for different people. In the early 50s, he started a band. He had this young trumpet player, this great-looking young trumpet player named Chet Baker, and he began playing with them. Well, you know, he had his groups. He began producing more. Well, Dave Brubeck in the mid-60s, you know, his group broke apart, and they broke up, and he just began playing with different people. Well, he had this trio that he formed with Jerry Mulligan, and this is one of the albums, and they actually played together for about 3 different years. So this was another great Brubeck listen. You know, Dave Brubeck, you know, his albums are really inexpensive, but there's some great music out there, and this was one of them. All right, let's get a little sip here. I showed this when I got it in. It was a VCLT from Hackman 377. Jason, who is totally inspired by Brazilian music because that's where his wife is from, and they visit there quite often. This is Polydor. This was the reissue of Jorge Ben. This was Jorge Ben's 14th album. And this was made in '76. And Ben had been listening to a lot of, shall we say, James Brown and some of the other funk people out there. I mean, they really made a big, they grabbed his attention. And there's a lot of electric guitar on this thing. And it's a funky, psychedelic, samba, rumba type music, or bossa nova, I should say. This was one I wanted since I learned about Jorge Ben from Hackman. This was the one I wanted to get, and I know Andrew from Tales of the Crate's been now getting into Jorge Ben also. You can find some of that stuff on Amazon, I'm sure a variety of places. This to me was the Grail one though, and it is really neat. And there's this song on here, it's called Sica da Silva. And the refrain from that, from Sica da, Sica da, Sica da, Sica da Silva, La Negra. Isn't that neat? Well, this, when Rod Stewart took his song, Do You Think I Sexy? He stole it. He stole it from here. And part of it's in Sica da Silva. So, darn you, Rod Stewart, bad. I hope this guy got paid for something. Everyone was stealing everything. So this is a masterpiece from '76. If you want to learn or hear more of Brazilian funk, Brazilian psych, wow. I mean, this thing it's all killer, no filler, from the very first cut to the last cut. Couldn't recommend this thing more. I am so delighted to have this thing and am playing it. All right, now I'm going to show you. I bought some really weird crap. I am. Woo, really? Yeah. All right. This was a record store day. I don't even know when the heck this came up for record store day. Would you quit screwing with the head? This is, well, let's just use, this is the cover it came in. Here, excuse me. You are just a pain. Here we go. The Pop Productions. Guys, it's from Thailand. Thailand Psych. Is there such a thing? Well, there is, and there's an interesting story on this. So here they are. Look at those. This is a group of the musicians. I got this in Omaha at Homer Records. It was like 75% off, so it's been around. Look, I got a poster. Steve likes posters. I don't show if that's one I'd really hang up or not, but it's really neat. I like it. Okay, it's fun. So there was a music movement in northern Thailand, or a type of music that was called Molan. And M-O-L-A-N, I believe. And what it means was expert is singing. In the 60s, mid-60s, Thailand was having a kind of an economic renaissance. Things were taking off, and the U.S. was coming in, and they were building air bases. Vietnam War, right? Let's build an air base in Thailand and go bomb the crap out of North Vietnam, Cambodia, or wherever else we could. So they were building these air bases. And this added a lot more money into the economy. And they were building them in northern Thailand, which is where Mullen was. Well, this guy, let's just call him The, all right? Because you know I can't do that. So we'll just call him The. He formed a band, and the band began to take off and became quite popular, and he began making a lot of money. So he went into TV, he went into radio, and he began to make recording studios, because you had to go down south to record in Bangkok, which is a long ways away. So he began creating recording studios up in northern Thailand. And within a few years, he had over 200 artists. That's right, over 200 people were listening, were on his thing. So now, albums didn't sell, so it was all 45. So these people were making lots and lots of 45s. Then, by the mid-70s, the government accused him of being a communist and in league with Mao Zedong. Now, this guy's extremely wealthy. He has lots of money. How many wealthy people do you know that would become a communist and part of what Mao Zedong? Hey, I give up everything I have. Here you go, Mao. Please take it all. But obviously, people were jealous of him, so they locked him up. And when he was in there, he began thinking more about music and began working on more psych. They began to add in, like he was listening to James Brown and different funk bands, Marvin Gaye, and began adding that to the music. So this is a selection of different 45s from 72 to 75. That's the label there, of the Mullen sound. Do I recommend this? All I can tell you, when I put it on, I just kind of, what the hell is that? You have that, when you think of some of the music from the Southeast, the people have this really high voice, or even China, whatever it is. Boy, they do a lot of that. And the guys and the gals, they all have this kind of high shrieking kind of voice, and there's some really weird instrumentations. It was 75% off, so it was well worth it for 75% off. It's interesting, it's different, something I've never had. If you were just looking for something to really groove to, I wouldn't get this. For historical interest, yeah, why not? But there you got it. That's, nice writing in here, nice notes and everything. So, interesting album. Quit the headbutt. Go back upstairs, man. All right, just a couple more left. I went to a record, I was in a record store, and I was looking around, and I saw this. That's Chet Atkins. Oh, wow, Chet Atkins. I got to pick that up. And I was really excited. Well, for whatever reason, I was thinking Chet Baker. Okay, now I do get things confused at times in my mind when I get excited. So I was thinking I was buying Chet Baker when I was buying Chet Atkins. Well, let me tell you, you put that baby on, there's a total disappointment in life. Chet Atkins made a lot of great stuff. I mean, he made, geez, wow, hundreds of albums. This is not a great one. It's really full of the strings. Chet Atkins, he was born in 1924. He said in his biography, he goes, it wasn't until the 1940s that they learned that there had been a depression in the 30s. They were so dirt poor, they didn't even know a depression went on because they didn't have any money anyway. It didn't matter to him. And so, but, country music was taken off in the 50s, but then rock and roll came. And it began to destroy country music. So Chet Atkins came up with the idea of the Nashville sound. And really what it involved was, let's get rid of the steel guitar, let's get rid of the fiddle. That won't be a part of it. But it added more orchestration to it. This album was from 1959. This is not an original. There's the RCA. It came out, this was from a couple years later when they added in a big buxom gal. And yes, that caught my attention. There's no doubt about it. But overall, I mean, it's just really orchestrated country, and didn't like it, but it was really cheap. I thought, wow, what a great deal for Chet Baker. but it wasn't. This I just picked up off Amazon on here, and this Chet Baker is from 1963, I believe. Chet is back. He still sounds good. You know, he's going through his troubles at the time. You know, this boy had so many issues and so many problems, and it's too bad because he was an amazing trumpet player. This is my second Chet Baker album, you know, and I've just really listened to him and learned about him, and now I'm starting on my journey of Chet Baker. Final two albums here by the same artist, Wanda Jackson. This is Wanda Jackson's fourth album. This is Wanda Jackson's 19th. Maybe this is Wanda Jackson's 14th album. No, I think it's her 19th album. Look at that. This one came out in 1971. This one came out in 1961. So within that time period, you know, she made almost 15 albums. So this one here, and this is called Right or Wrong. There is two sides. There's the sentimental side, and then there is the rockin' side. And the rockin' side, she does Brown-Eyed Handsome Man, Slippin' and a Slidin', Baby Left Me, Cupid Cupid. It rocks. It has that growl, you know, and you know, Wanda Jackson could growl better than everyone. The sentimental side, it is sentimental. This was her last rockabilly. And then she went into the country music, and so through the 60s she did country. So she had 4 albums in which she had a lot of that rockabilly that I really love. Now I'm just missing her very first, her debut album. So then came this one. Well, it didn't come. This came, you know, 10 years later. You know, like 15 albums later came this one, I've Gotta Sing. You know it's country. Look at that hair. That's country here, isn't it? So she did this one. It is very country. This is one of her last country albums. So what we have here is last rockabilly, last country. From here she went into gospel. And then she did that for 10 years and then found that really the music was back into the rockabilly. That's what people wanted to hear. So she's still out there producing on that. So again, it's just an artist I've really enjoyed getting into, finding more about. I think she's important in the history of music, and especially in the early. So Wanda Jackson, that's a couple of them. There we have it. That is this week's stuff. New subscribers, thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed. Oh man, I forgot to show this. I'm sorry, man, this is going long now. There was a channel about a week ago, and it's Jonas from Sublime Media. Sublime Media Jonas. I think he's from Sweden. He had a whole thing, 40 minutes about books. Books and me, right? All right. And this is one that he recommended. He goes, well, everyone has this. And I'm looking, I go, well, I guess I'm not everyone because I don't have this one. And it's about someone's journey, or it's about record, about buying lots of vinyl addicts. So I bought that off Amazon, excited to read that. And I just wanted to show my what I got for Christmas. I bought it because no one in my family bought me. Everyone's showing, man, my family bought me this and this and this. You know, I have an Amazon wish list. Does anybody touch it? No. So I bought this. It's, you know, Miles Davis here, and this is from at Newport, 55 to 75 bootleg sessions. Everyone does bootleg. I guess there's just lots out there. Great stuff. So this takes you through Miles Davis through a variety of different changes with his music, and really, really enjoyable. And there's like, look at all those CDs, and there's a nice booklet in here. So fun pickup. Really enjoyed that. Merry Christmas. I gave it to my wife to wrap. Didn't wrap it for me. It was just still in the brown thing. I guess I don't know why, but hey, happy to have it. Another Miles Davis. All right. That did it. You know, I'm a little late today. You know, I didn't start till 5 o'clock. Can you believe that? I think, yeah, actually, I woke up at 12:30 last night and just tossed and turned. Should I just go down and film this thing? I was getting at 1 in the morning to film it, but I forced myself to stay in bed. So, cheers with the coffee here. I got some contests we're doing. Gregory Short has a contest I want to work on. Beth and B-side and H2O vinyl, so we'll work on something like that. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Really do appreciate that. We made it through the first first week of the year. Well, we've almost made it through, so here's to a happy new year to each and every one of you, and I really appreciate you always watching and commenting. Thank you so much. Have a great day.